So some shocking news today from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. About a week and a half ago, the CFTC had released this very brief announcement saying that it had placed several staff on administrative leave for potential violations of laws, government ethics requirements, and professional rules of conduct. They didn't mention who the staff were or what the violations were. But yesterday we see this. A special master in one of their cases is recommending that the case be dropped with prejudice and that the CFTC be held liable for damages. So full disclosure, I used to work at the CFTC and I was in charge of a lot of the FX stuff, but I was in one of the operating divisions. I was not in enforcement. And while sometimes we're asked to help with enforcement cases, this isn't one I worked on, or at least I don't recall it. And even if I did work on it, the stuff I'm going to talk about is just going to be in general nature, so it wouldn't involve attorney-client privilege or anything like that. So what shocked me about this case is it should have been a slam dunk, and because they dropped the ball so badly or overplayed their hand, now not only is this case being dismissed with prejudice, but they're going to be sanctioned. So why do I say this should have been a slam dunk? Because anyone who's involved in Forex trading with retail customers has to be registered as a RFED, a retail foreign exchange dealer, or a futures commission merchant to do business in the US. This company was in Canada. They were not registered as either. So that in itself should have been enough for a win in this case. And then if you add in the alleged fraud, it should have been very easy. So what went wrong? So the CFTC went in along with the Ontario Securities Commission on the same day and froze their funds, which is not unusual because if you have somebody who you think is siphoning customer funds and stealing them, if you try to subpoena them and get statements, if they're stealing a little bit, by the time that whole process is done, all the money could disappear, especially if you're dealing with foreign entities. So this is Canada, which is a very honest country, but if you're dealing in places like Cyprus or Turkey, where a lot of these Forex shops set up, and it would be very difficult to ever get the money back. So if there's some money in a US bank account, and there's some allegation that they're taking money, it's generally a good idea to freeze it, and then that would preserve the money for the customers. So what went wrong here? In their declarations where they alleged that the money was being dissipated, there was a $31 million payment in Canadian dollars that they alleged was being siphoned from one bank account to another bank account controlled by the CEO. And it turns out that in documents provided by the Ontario Securities Commission, that the notations TXINS, BS, TXBL were for tax payments to the Canadian government. And they made the CFTC aware of this, but the CFTC never corrected their filings. And apparently the head attorney was aware of this on August 17th due to an email that he had from the Ontario Securities Commission, and it was in his file, but apparently either he didn't read it or forgot about it and did not update what he submitted to the court. And when you submit something to court, and I'm not a litigator, but you have to swear that, everything in there is true to the best of your knowledge. And by submitting something that was inaccurate and then later not updating it, that's a huge violation. And it caused them to not only get this case dismissed with prejudice, but they could be on the hook for sanctions. Now, the company that is the subject of this was obviously harmed by this because when you go to their website, it's not there anymore. It's just parked. So as I said, this should have been a slam dunk. If you look up Traders Global on NFA's database, basic, you'll see that it's not an NFA member. And as I said, if you want to do retail FX, you'd have to be registered as a retail foreign exchange dealer or a futures commission merchant. And I know this because I was the one that drafted the retail foreign exchange dealer rules. And the allegation in the complaint is that this company ran another company called My Forex, and they enticed people in the US and Canada to do business with them and allegedly pulled in hundreds of millions of dollars by offering them a chance to become professional Forex traders. So, you could be the next Gordon Gekko, you could be the next Bill Ackman. And what they would do, according to the complaint, is offer you to trade Forex with their money against large institutional counterparties. That's the allegation. That, you'd put up some of your money, they'd put up some of their money. You would trade against these sophisticated counterparties. And if you made money, then they would give you the opportunity to be a professional Forex trader, which is ridiculous. If you have an MBA or PhD and you want to work in a place like this with other MBAs and PhDs with these sophisticated computer models, you might have a shot. But if you buy into this course that they offer and other companies do the same thing and think that you're going to trade Forex after you get off from driving Uber and then you're going to become a professional trader, that's not going to happen. So if you go to the Code of Federal Regulations under Part 5, Off-Exchange Foreign Currency Transactions, you'll see that you can't commit fraud. But even before you get to the fraud, in order for you to do any retail Forex trading at all as a counterparty, you have to be a retail foreign exchange dealer. And if you want to be a retail foreign exchange dealer, you would register with the National Futures Association. So the CFTC is the regulator, the NFA is the self-regulatory organization. It's the equivalent of FINRA for the futures side, and they would handle the logistics of registering, getting you fingerprinted, all that good stuff. And in order for you to get started as a retail foreign exchange dealer, you'd have to register. You'd have to have at least $22 million. All the principals would have to be registered. All your associated persons would have to take the Series 3 and be registered, get fingerprinted, everything like that. So this firm was not registered, didn't do any of that. So this part would have been a slam dunk before you even get to the fraud. But because they staff overplayed their hand and submitted things to the court that were not true, that they should have known about, and failed to correct that, that was so egregious that the special master is recommending that the court dismiss the case with prejudice, meaning that it can't be refiled, and that the CFTC could potentially be open for sanctions, meaning that they'd have to pay the legal expenses or something like that for the firm. And the firm's not out of the water yet because the Canadian regulators, the Ontario Securities Commission, they haven't dropped that case. But with regard to this, that case is done. So on the criminal side, there's something known as prosecutorial misconduct, where the actions of the prosecutor are so egregious that the case is dropped. And you saw that recently in the case of the DOJ and the fraud indictments against the New York mayor. And the CFTC is a civil agency. They don't have criminal authority, but this would be the equivalent of prosecutorial misconduct on that end. So part of the allegations in the original complaint is that this company, My Forex, which traded through a company called Traders Global Group, were all the same company, and that when they said you're going to be trading against these sophisticated counterparties like Citibank and JP Morgan and Goldman, you were doing none of that, that you were putting up your own money, and when you were executing the trades, according to the complaint, you were just trading against Traders Global. So if you think about it, a guy tells you, let's go to this casino, you put up some of your money, you'll put up some of my money, and then if you make money, we'll split the difference. And then you go to the casino and you lose all the money, and then you find out that the casino was owned by the guy who said he was giving you money, and he can make up the rules and set the prices. It would be hard for you to come out ahead, right? So there's two types of Forex trading. There's in retail FX trading, there's what's called straight-through processing, where you see a liquidity provider who gives a price to the broker-dealer, and then they increase the bid-ask spread by a little bit on each side, called a pip, and then they show that to the retail customer. And when the customer trades with the broker simultaneously trades with the liquidity provider. So there are a riskless principle. They don't lose any money, and they make a little bit on each trade when you buy or sell, but they're not out any of their own money. And then there are FX dealers who trade with retail customers who are registered as retail foreign exchange dealers or FCMs, and they will take the other side of a customer's trade so that the customer is trading against them. And when the customer makes a dollar, the broker loses a dollar. When the customer loses a dollar, the broker makes a dollar. And the problem here is that they told customers, allegedly, that we're doing this straight through processing, but in actuality, they were taking the other side of the trade, and customers thought they were getting a fair price. But according to the complaint, their software was manipulating the prices to make it harder and harder for the customers to win by changing the price which you would execute a trade at that wouldn't match what you saw on the screen. So normally if you hit a bid or lift and ask, and you put a market price instead of a limit price, sometimes the market will move between when you hit the button and when you buy, and that's called slippage. But that slippage wasn't natural because they are the ones dictating the prices, not a third liquidity provider. And so if you thought you were getting an honest bid, but you're just trading with this person who is making up the prices, it's going to be a problem for you. But even with that, a few people, either through luck or maybe because they were legitimately good, were making money trading. And allegedly, when that happened, Traders Global would send these trades through a third-party liquidity provider, but instead of taking the bid-ask spread and increasing it 1 pip on each side, they would take the bid-ask spread and increase it several pips on each side to make it harder and harder for anyone to make money, because their intention, according to the complaint, was not to run this training camp to get people who were promising candidates to trade retail Forex and turn them into pros, but that this was their business model, which was to dangle that in front of them, run these training courses, take their money, and then leave them with nothing, according to the complaint. And as I said, it should have been a slam dunk, because just by the fact of not being registered, that should have been enough to shut them down, because they needed to be registered as an RFED with 22 million just to operate. And there was the fraud thrown in on top of that, but apparently the CFTC overplayed their hand, and now they're paying for it, and lawyers and support staff are on paid leave or a suspension, and could lose their jobs, could lose their license. It's horrible. And I know sometimes people are overworked and things slip, but the allegations here are pretty severe, and I'm not naming the lawyers. I know who they are. I've seen it in the press releases, but I don't want to kick anyone when they're down, and especially if this is just an allegation at this point. But I have worked for 22 years at the CFTC and have dealt with enforcement a lot, and they are some of the hardest working, most professional people out there. And this is definitely an aberration that I've never seen before, and I'm sure the fact that it's being taken so seriously and immediate action is being taken speaks well of the integrity of the people at the CFTC and their commitment to fair dealing and leading by example. If you want to regulate the financial markets and keep them honest, you have to be like Caesar's wife and be above reproach. So it's shocking that this happened, but it seems like they are doing the right steps and acting immediately. And Acting Commissioner Pham apparently complained about this a year ago, and rather than doing the right thing, she was a commissioner at the time. It seemed like the office in Chicago, which was in charge of this investigation, closed ranks, when what they should have done is transfer this investigation. When there was this allegation of impropriety, they should have transferred it to one of the other offices. New York has an enforcement branch, Kansas City has an enforcement branch, Washington, D.C. has an enforcement branch. and let somebody else take it over, because if you're tainted, you shouldn't be in charge of the investigation. And because that didn't happen, they're dealing with the consequences of that now. And they, according to her, they took cheap shots at her when she was a commissioner over this issue, and now that she is um, in the driver's seat, it looks like that's coming home to roost. So I have dealt with Commissioner Pham before. She's a nice lady. She's very professional, very knowledgeable, and she came up through the ranks. She started as an intern for one of the commissioners, and then became staff, and so she's very respected at the agency. And my hat's off to her for taking this very seriously. So anyway, my name is Pete. I'm a lawyer with 25 years experience in the financial markets. I started in mergers and acquisitions, and then I moved to the CFTC, and I worked for 22 years at different roles in division of clearing and intermediary, division of clearing and intermediary oversight, division of swap dealer and intermediary oversight, and market participants division at different roles: attorney advisor, special counsel, acting associate director, and now I am a consultant, still an attorney, and now a YouTuber. And I hope you found this interesting. If you got some value out of this, hopefully you will like the video, subscribe to the channel so you'll see future updates. And if you have any questions about this or suggestions about future topics, just leave a comment below. Good luck, everyone.